Hi, I'm James of Metallica. Back in 2010, our band offered $50,000 to help catch the person responsible for murdering Morgan Harrington. Since that time, authorities uncovered new evidence linking her killer to a similar assault on a woman in Virginia. If you've seen the person in this sketch or have any information about this case or any others, please contact your local police or submit your information online.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this video we're going to talk about what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2009, and well, the same thing happened again in 2014. Two women went missing 5 years apart, and both would end up found to have been perpetrated by the same person. A cab driver, if you can believe it, and there is the high possibility that he is the man behind a number of unsolved cases, which we'll get into. So let's. On September 13th, 2014, 18-year-old Hannah Graham vanished. Born in Reading, England, Hannah moved to the US at age 5 with her parents. A second-year student at the University of Virginia, Hannah hoped to pursue a career in global public health. That night, she left one party to make her way to a second one, but texted her friends to say she was lost at about 1:20 a.m. that night. She was captured on CCTV wandering the downtown Charlottesville area, and someone was following her. According to the footage and witnesses who were there that night, Hannah was seen at a restaurant with 32-year-old Jesse Matthew Jr. A witness said that Jesse was seen in the restaurant holding an arm around Hannah, and that she looked drunk. The last witness to see Hannah that night said she was with a man who did not look friendly. He later saw Hannah standing by a vehicle identified to be Jesse's car, and a witness heard her say, "I'm not getting in that car with you." And that was the last time Hannah Graham was seen alive. 5 years earlier, another woman, Morgan Dana Harrington, also disappeared. She was 20 years old and, like Hannah, was last seen in the Charlottesville area. On the night of October 17th, 2009, Morgan and 3 friends went to the John Paul Jones Arena at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville for a Metallica concert. While the opening act were playing, Morgan told friends that she was going to the toilet, and she never came back. When her friends began to wonder where she had gone off to, they rang her, and when she answered, she said that she was locked out of the arena because of its no re-entry policy. Now, she just said she was going to the toilet, so I don't know why she actually left the arena. I mean, the 2 supporting acts that night were Lamb of God and Gojira, so I didn't know they were that bad. Anyway, that friggin' sucks. I'd be pissed if they didn't let me back in after I paid for a ticket. According to witness reports, she was last seen at around 9:30 p.m. hitchhiking on a nearby bridge. Witnesses claim to have seen her talking to this man. And that was the last time she was seen alive.
A search is on this morning for Virginia Tech juniors missing since attending a weekend rock concert. The Metallica show was at the John Paul Jones Arena on the University of Virginia campus in Charlottesville. CBS News correspondent Terrell Brown is there this morning with the latest. Terrell, good morning.
Russ, good morning to you. Morgan Harrington was last seen in this building, John Paul Jones Arena, for that concert. After the show on Sunday, she was supposed to go home to Roanoke to visit her family. It's something that she would normally do, except this time, she never came home.
It's been more than 3 days and still no sign of 20-year-old Morgan Harrington. Her parents held back tears as they pleaded for the return of their youngest child and only daughter.
If Morgan is out there and hears us, please come home.
Her purse and cell phone were found at the University of Virginia's athletic field the next morning. After her disappearance, about 1,600 volunteers searched woods, roads and fields in a radius around the bridge, searching for clues about what happened to Morgan. On November 11th, about a month after Morgan disappeared, Charlottesville police responded to a report outside an apartment building about 1.5 miles from where she was last seen. They found a bloodied Pantera t-shirt, the one she was wearing that night. Blood found on the shirt matched Morgan's DNA. And despite finding numerous articles of clothing and artifacts, police never found anything really, though, relating to where she could have gone or any leads as to what happened to her. But they can probably hazard a guess when they found blood on her t-shirt.
We make the following announcements with heavy hearts. 9:53 this morning, Virginia State Police was notified by an Albemarle County resident of a discovery that they had made on their 700-acre farm in the southern part of the county.
Morgan's remains were then discovered by a farmer on January 26, 2010, about 10 miles from the arena, in a remote area of the farm. Although investigators did not release information about her death, her parents confirmed it had been very violent and that bones were broken.
There's something that you know about the condition of her body that is quite disturbing, but maybe a very significant clue. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, and I can't go into too much detail, but it is very apparent from seeing Morgan's remains that, people think, oh, well, she was killed. Well, they think, she went to sleep. She was killed in a fashion that was brutal enough to fracture her bones. I mean, that is a lot of force. I was not able to see the soft tissue injuries because he threw her in a field to rot, and what was left for me was a skeleton. But I saw the damage that he ravaged on her skeleton. Yes, ma'am.
So, who could do this? Well, DNA found on Morgan's body matched. On September 24th, 2005, we keep going back in time in this video, in Fairfax, Virginia, at about 8:30 p.m., a woman who has only been identified as RG was coming home from the grocery store when she was attacked walking up the stairs of her home. Someone grabbed her from behind and pulled her to a grassy patch just feet from her home. This person beat the living shit out of her and then started choking her. He sexually assaulted her as she fought back, crying out for help. She remembers him saying, "I will kill you if you scream again. Let me do this and I'll let you go." At some point, Orgy lost consciousness. When she awoke, a car's headlights illuminated the area and the man had fled the scene. After the assault, she completed a rape kit with the local law enforcement, but the DNA did not match any known assailant in their database.
She walked faster, then heard footsteps running behind her. Suddenly, she said he lifted her up and started carrying her. He dropped her, picked her up again, and then dragged her by her feet. She said he took her to a grassy area near some woods and threw her to the ground, sat on top of her legs and began choking her and slamming her head against the ground. She remembers him taking her pants off and assaulting her. She became emotional as she described the attack, and she said she used her hands to try to push him away. She said she fought back, screaming and scratching him. Suddenly, he was gone. A man who happened to be driving into the parking lot startled the attacker with the headlights of his car. He said he heard someone faintly calling for help, then saw the victim naked and covered in blood.
Whoever did this, whoever attacked Orgy, that man's DNA was also found 4 years later on Morgan's body. Now we go back to the future. 5 weeks after Hannah Graham disappeared, and after a massive search effort, human remains were found at an abandoned property, about 6 miles from where Morgan's body was found in January 2010.
We have some breaking news to report to you right now. The medical examiner's office for the state has now confirmed that the remains discovered in Albemarle County on October 18th are indeed those of 18-year-old Hannah Graham of Fairfax, Virginia.
Autopsy showed that the cause of death was homicidal violence of undetermined etiology, with the most likely cause being suffocation or strangulation. Her nose had also been broken. So I'll go ahead and state the obvious. The police had a very definite person of interest, caught on surveillance camera, and also witnesses saw this person acting aggressively towards Hannah. His name is Jesse Matthew Jr. He was seen talking with Hannah and following her on surveillance footage. It took police roughly a week to actually identify who he was. Witnesses who knew Jesse said he exhibited odd behavior in the days following Hannah's disappearance. He showed up to work late, didn't acknowledge his co-workers, and told them he was not okay, and acted very, very not himself and very weird. They also said he had a swollen jaw, complained of tooth pain, rarely left his apartment and was unresponsive to phone calls.
And they are looking tonight for a person of interest, Jesse Matthew. And here's why. We know Matthew was with Hannah Graham on the downtown mall of Charlottesville the morning she disappeared. We know they walked this way, and we know they went into this bar right here. And police say they have evidence they left the bar together. After that, they cannot account for what happened to Hannah Graham. And that's why they want to talk to Jesse Matthew so badly.
After searching his apartment, they recovered a cell phone that had not been in service since September 13th, with the SIM card removed, a pair of shorts with Hannah's DNA, and another DNA sample matching Hannah's on his passenger side door. After police named Jesse as a person of interest in Hannah's disappearance, he fled Virginia to Texas. Then, on September 24th, 2014, he was arrested in Galveston, where he was camping on Gilchrist Beach after being recognized.
The man charged in Hannah's abduction is in custody tonight in Galveston, as we said, and it's all thanks to a woman who spotted him on a beach and then called police.
It was on this remote beach in Gilchrist, Texas, that Jesse Matthew hid as a fugitive from justice. Authorities say the 32-year-old wanted man built a campsite and stayed here for possibly up to 2 days before spotted by this woman who ultimately called police.
And he looked and did a double take and slammed on his brakes into the sand. He was very close and looked right at me, and it was very scary.
Mr. Matthew, my name is Judge Henry. You have 2 charges this morning. You have got a fugitive from justice warrant out of Virginia for abduction of a person with intent to defile. You have got a Galveston County charge of false information to a peace officer. Your bond is denied on the fugitive from justice warrant. Your bond in the Galveston County charge is $1,500. Do you understand that? Do you understand that?
Yeah. Like, they took all my clothes and they got me sleeping on a hard thing. I don't feel like I'm I should be able to have some kind of clothes.
You appear to me to be dressed in a jumpsuit.
Is this for Virginia? Yes. So what is the Virginia one again?
The Virginia warrant is a fugitive from justice warrant. The underlying charge is abduction of a person with intent to defile.
And if I sign this, what is this saying?
It only says that I read you your rights. You're not entering a plea of any kind this morning.
It was then announced that the DNA found at the Morgan Harrington crime scene, it matched that of Jesse Matthew, and he was also responsible for the assault in Fairfax. They didn't have him in their database at the time, so they couldn't match him, but, well, now they did. In October 2014, Jesse was indicted for the 2005 assault on Orgy. 4 months later, in February 2015, he was charged with Hannah's murder, and in May that same year, prosecutors announced they would seek the death penalty for his crimes. In October 2015, Jesse received 3 life sentences for the assaults of Orgy. During the trial, he entered an Alford plea, meaning he acknowledged there was enough evidence to convict him, without directly admitting any crime, and was so charged right away without it actually going to trial. And on March 2nd, 2016, Jesse pled guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of abduction with intent to defile of Morgan Harrington and Hannah Graham. A judge sentenced him to 4 consecutive life sentences. He will spend life in prison in lieu of the death penalty, agreeing to the conditions that there is no chance for early release, parole eligibility, or geriatric release.
Our overriding priority was that Matthew will never be able again to inflict his depravity on young women.
Joining us now, Morgan's mother, Jill Harrington, founder of Help Save the Next Girl. Jill, good morning.
Good morning.
You know, you lived this nightmare yourself, and you've been living it for so long. You had to be heartbroken to hear that here we go again, it looks like.
Yeah, there's so many young women from our part of the country, our part of Virginia, missing and or murdered just since Morgan was killed. And it is gut-wrenching to think that another family is going through that anguish. We just are sick about it.
He got 7 life sentences, so better start eating healthily. Well, judging by what happened, he obviously didn't. Now, Jesse definitely did these 3 crimes, 2 murders and 1 sexual assault. But it's thought he did a hell of a lot more. These crimes were all incredibly violent. And the fact that there was, 4 to 5 year breaks in between, that's not standard for a person of his degree of shittiness to take such a long break between these obscene crimes. I mean, 10 years earlier, in the early 2000s, Jesse was 2 times accused of sexual assault at 2 separate universities, Liberty University and Christopher Newport University, and he left each school immediately after each allegation. Police investigated both reports, but in neither incident was a case brought against him. But wait, there's more. 20-year-old Letitia Lamone Brooks was last seen on August 29, 2002, leaving Piedmont Court Services on foot in Farmville, Virginia, and has not been heard from again. No one knows what happened to her. Farmville is only a short 48-minute drive from Lynchburg, where Jesse was attending college at the time. 6 months later, 19-year-old Julie Marie Frazier was last seen leaving a bar in Norfolk, Virginia. This was during the time that Jesse attended Christopher Newport University, which was only a 30-minute drive away. Autumn Wind Day was last seen shopping at the Food Line grocery store, 2 miles from the university Jesse was studying at, when she disappeared on July 24th, 2003. Less than 2 months later, 31-year-old Sophie Mae Rivera went missing after leaving her home located 7 miles from Christopher Newport University. Jesse left the CNU football team 5 days after Rivera vanished, and dropped out of school a month later. It keeps going. 18-year-old Shelley Carson was last seen alive leaving her home to run up the street to a 7-Eleven. On August 14th, 2005, her body was found brutally beaten to death in Virginia Beach. She was so badly beaten, her parents had to identify her off the shoes she was wearing. She was so unrecognizable. Shelley's father felt that after the resolution of Hannah Graham and Morgan Harrington's cases, that his daughter's murder could be connected. And finally, and when I say finally, I mean the only other case that we know of that could be linked to Jesse Matthew. And that was the case of Cassandra Morton, who was last seen walking in Lynchburg on October 10th, 2009, around the same time as Morgan Harrington disappeared. Her family reported her missing 4 days later. Her decomposed body was found 48 days later. She was buried in a shallow grave under a pile of rocks. Due to the heavy decomposition her body went through, dental and medical records were required to ID her. Her head was found several feet from her body, and unfortunately no DNA evidence could be recovered. And all of that is not even counting the fact that we know Jesse Matthew was a sexual predator, and 2/3 of sexual assaults are not reported to police. Hannah Graham, Morgan Harrington, and Orgy were all isolated and vulnerable to a man like Jesse Matthew, a big guy.
For you.
An ex-college football player, 6'2" and 270 pounds. And so were, well, all these other women who went missing around the time that we know Jesse Matthew was an active predator and in, not far away from where he was at the time. And, as I said, his convicted crimes were extremely violent. And so it's likely there are possibly many, maybe many possible other victims out there. But it's not all bad news. In spring 2019, Jesse told a reporter he had been diagnosed with cancer. When asked if he was sorry for his crimes, he responded, "I don't know if I can answer that question right now, truthfully. Maybe in another interview." His diagnosis turned out to be stage 4 colon cancer, so... Though I don't know if that's a better sentence or more just sentence for his crimes than spending the rest of your natural life locked up in a tiny little room. Wow, that was pretty dark of me. Well, so was this case. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to see some more of my videos, please subscribe if you want to, and watch other videos also if you want to. And I will see you real soon in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Mike out.